BLAH Welcome.
I started noticing that recently, or past 10 years, I could not find any movie or TV show that actually talks about being broke or money. The character actually is not grounded in a way that used to be like a working class person. For example, Detective Columbo was a grounded TV show. Even the crimes are over the top and unique. The character itself is very grounded. The only way I could summarize Detective Columbo is that a working class detective solving white collar crimes. Maybe a blue collar detective is solving white collar crimes would be appropriate way to put it. The shows or movies, even 90s, 80s, 80s I cannot say much, but let's say 90s, you could find characters actually broke, eating normal people food, not looking like come out of a lab. There's a cat is bothering me. So, one sec. So, where was I? So, the reason why we can't see any more characters that actually represent a real world person with real world problems. It can be even fantasy, it doesn't matter, but as much there should be some sort of representation of a common person. And I don't find it very authentic. And I have a couple of theories. Not a conspiracy theory, but just a thought. Yeah. One is that studios actually don't want to make these kind of things, and these stories are very controlled. The media is very controlled, so they don't want an average person to think about how bad their financial situation is, because then they will start thinking about why they are in that situation. So that's not good if you are above the line. And then two, that is not true. That's the only thought I have. But the more I think of it, the more example come to my head. Because I remember that. Um, I hope I say his name right. Tommy Maguire, Spider-Man, actually portrayed him in a way that actually he's from a very lower middle class background. But in the new Spider-Man, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, I believe his name, forgive me, there is no, there's no Spider-Man is broke or coming from a lower, I don't know, middle class background. I believe the original character was like that, but as far I remember. But I don't know why they did change that. And then only one shot I can think of, there is a broken phone used by Spider-Man. So that's the only implication that he doesn't have any bucks, money, currency. It doesn't make any sense because, I mean, why? Because I remember in the 90s, I mean, I don't remember in the 90s, but I say the movies when I watch, um, specifically like Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs, when Quentin and his gang came to the scene, the movies were actually portraying these characters, criminals, but let's say first three of his movies maybe I don't remember, Jackie Brown including, had these type of characters who are very grounded, and you can relate to them, what they eat, what they drink, and what car they drive. And even all around the world, you could actually, okay, I can relate to that. But then Quentin doesn't make those kind of film anymore after 90s. He went to a different genre, whether period film or sort of even Kill Bill. It's not realistic. And I wonder why. I'm not saying there's a pressure, but that's not, I don't want to create theories, but it's so odd that that type of filmmaking or that type of writing went away. I cannot think of anything. I'm just repeating this over and over again because I cannot. Also, the way they portray a broke person, a poor person, is also very inauthentic and very weird. Like they had no clue how depressing that is. I'm going out of the topic. But I'm talking about the mainstream cinema. Yeah. Not particularly independent films, because you could find these films, but I'm talking about the mainstream. And that's the point. Because Columbo was somehow popular and Seinfeld was popular. You could still find, even in Office, when the Office US version started, you could see in first 2-3 seasons that they are like normal people, and the way they dress, the way even things they use. And as the new season comes on, you could see that, I mean, they work in a failing paper company. How the hell they can afford all of this? Doesn't make any sense. One thing that, since was successful, everybody wanted that piece of that pie, so maybe the show lost its juice, juju, whatever it is. Or they just don't want you to think how depressing the normal life is. I don't know who is they. I'm saying the decision makers. And I don't know why, because the whole point about The Office is that there is beauty in ordinary things. And after a while, The Office isn't an ordinary show. Their lives aren't ordinary. They go to a paper company, but and they do very well. They seem like they were doing very well, working in a failing paper company. So failed paper company and failing industry. So also, this is why I also think that the new version of the paper, I guess, the Office spin-off didn't work. I didn't know, but I watched the trailer, but it wasn't impressive for me because I couldn't. I understand that kind of using the same template, but it doesn't work. At least for a comical point of view, because for a starter, that you're in a big office and the magazine and this news thing is not something an average person can relate to. I'm talking about work environment aspect. But the paper company, that how claustrophobic that is in the office, first 2-3 seasons. And that's something most people can relate to, how boring there is a sound, especially like sound effects, the printer always running, and the background noises. All of this actually adds some ingredients to the show. And that's similar filmmaking I find in Columbo, Detective Columbo. I'm repeating Detective Columbo because you cannot find any other show after that, like an average blue collar worker. I'm saying the point of view from an average person. I mean, Detective Columbo is not an average person, but I'm saying the life of an average person to look everything actually punching up. It's a statement more than a show, I believe, because all the murder mysteries mostly about there's a killer, and mostly these killers are, as for my analysis of the murder mysteries, the killer always a white collar criminal, unfortunately. It's because I guess that the murder is more compelling in this genre when the murder actually motivated by greed or more than something to do with survival. It should be something more extra, and that's what make it very twisted. How far they would go to do that, and this is my observation. So, and I also think that probably these changes are very progressive, not in a positive way. I'm saying it didn't happen overnight that some decision makers made this happen, but it progressed here because after the reality shows becoming famous after the 90s, I think the way we watch TV and everything changed because the reality show pretty much ruined TV, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I know. I'm not going to take that back. I actually have that very strong. I try not to be opinionated, but that is a very strong opinion and I'm dying with it. That's going to my grave. Reality shows are not good. It's junky, like potato chips, but not good. I mean, not good for your health. Still tasty. So there you go. I think the way the reality shows glamour and money, brand, materialistic, all of that influenced on how these shows have been made. This is also try to connect these two things without any evidence, but watching TV, this is just a first-hand experience and observation. And I did not do a research, just these thoughts just coming out of me as I record this. So here we are in 2025. Pretty much every TV show, movies do not talk about a real world problem apart from the internet. If we don't have internet, and we would not able to communicate this. And that's what makes me wonder, is this a pre-planned attempt that already happened to make sure that people will not use as that like a as a, I mean in the topic of conversation, because everything is awesome on TV or Instagram, at least used to be, but people's lives aren't, and that's odd. That's weird. But all the movies are whether fantasy or sci-fi or period film or horror, nothing to do with. I mean, you could make all of these movies, but I'm talking about the character is not living in a reality that you, the viewer, are living in. That's what I find it very odd. They don't eat a certain food, people eat, and there's always an exaggeration of being broke, like a fantasy, like a seduction instead of how depressing that is. I don't know. I like to think that I was wrong, but every time I watch something from Hollywood, it doesn't help or force me to change my mind. Whatever shows or movies come recently, last 10 years in this case, doesn't support that. Don't support that. So I don't know where to go with this thought, but just want to put it out there. What a joke. What a joke.
BLAH 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 グッドバイ